Hello everyone. Welcome back to our channel. We're really happy to have you here today. If you're learning English, this is the place where you can improve your listening through simple and natural conversations about everyday life. So, take a deep breath, get comfortable, and let's practice English together. I'm Doran.
And I'm Luna. Hi everyone. Today we have another interesting story for you. It's a simple story, but I think many people can relate to it.
The story is called Tom Lost His Bag.
Oh, losing a bag doesn't sound very pleasant.
Definitely not, especially when there's something important inside.
So, what happened to Tom?
It was Monday morning. Tom arrived at the university a little earlier than usual because he had an important test that afternoon. He was carrying a black backpack, which contained his notebook, his wallet, his keys, and a few other important things.
Sounds like a normal morning so far.
Yes, at first, everything was completely normal. Tom walked into the library because he wanted to study for a few hours. He found an empty table near the window, put his bag on the floor, and took out his notebook.
Did he study alone?
Yes, there weren't many students in the library that morning, so it was quiet. Tom opened his book, put on his headphones, and started studying.
That sounds peaceful.
It was. For about 2 hours, Tom stayed there. He read several pages, wrote some notes, and checked a few important questions. Then, his phone suddenly rang.
Who called him?
It was his friend, Alex. Alex wanted to know if Tom was ready for the test.
And was he ready?
Well, Tom said, "Of course I'm ready." But honestly, he wasn't completely sure.
I think a lot of students say that.
Exactly. After the phone call, Tom looked at the clock. It was almost noon. He decided to leave the library and get something to eat. So, he closed his notebook, put everything on the table, and stood up.
And then he left?
Yes, but there was one problem. Tom forgot something.
His bag?
Exactly. He walked out of the library without his bag.
Oh no.
He didn't notice immediately. He walked down the stairs, checked his phone, and even stopped at a small cafe. He ordered a sandwich and sat down.
So, when did he realize?
About 10 minutes later, Tom reached into his pocket and suddenly stopped.
What happened?
He couldn't find his keys. Then, he checked his other pocket. Nothing. He looked inside his jacket. Still nothing.
Oh.
Then he remembered his keys were inside his bag. And suddenly, he realized something much worse.
His bag wasn't with him.
Exactly. Tom quickly stood up. He looked around the cafe as if his bag might suddenly appear. But it wasn't there.
I can imagine how he felt.
He became very worried because his wallet was in the bag. His university ID was there too. And most importantly, his notes for the afternoon test were inside.
That's a serious problem.
It was. Tom started thinking about everything that could go wrong. Maybe someone had taken the bag. Maybe he had left it somewhere else. Maybe he would never find it.
But he had to do something.
You're right. Tom took a deep breath and tried to remember where he'd been.
Let's see. He went from the library to the stairs, then to the coffee.
Exactly. He checked the cafe first. He looked under the table, behind the chair, and near the entrance. But there was no bag.
So he went back to the library?
Yes, he hurried back to the library because he suddenly remembered where he had put his bag.
Where?
Under the table, near the window.
Maybe it's still there.
Tom opened the library door, looked toward the table, and froze.
What did he see?
The table was empty. His bag was gone.
Oh no! What was Tom going to do?
For a moment, Tom just stood there. He was worried. He was confused, and he didn't know where to start. But then, he noticed a student sitting nearby. She was reading a book, and she seemed friendly.
Did Tom ask her for help?
At first, he hesitated. He didn't want to bother her. He thought, maybe I should solve this myself.
That's a very common feeling. Sometimes we need help, but we're afraid to ask.
Exactly. But Tom didn't have much time. So, he walked over to her and finally said, "Excuse me, I'm sorry to bother you, but could you help me?"
And that simple question was about to change everything.
Because the student looked at Tom, smiled, and said something he really didn't expect.
What did she say?
She looked at Tom and said, "Sure, what's wrong?"
I like that. She didn't make him feel uncomfortable. She simply asked what had happened.
Exactly. Tom explained everything. He told her that he had left his bag in the library and that he couldn't find it anymore.
What did she say?
She thought for a moment and then asked, "What does your bag look like?"
Good question.
Tom answered, "It's a black backpack. It's quite small, and there's a blue keychain on it."
A blue keychain. That could be useful.
The student nodded and said, "Okay, let's try to find it."
See, sometimes asking for help is the first step towards solving a problem.
Exactly. Tom thanked her, and the two of them started looking around the library.
Where did they look first?
They checked the table where Tom had been studying. Nothing. Then they looked under the chairs. Nothing. They checked the nearby tables, but there was no black backpack.
Tom must have been getting more worried.
He was. He looked at the clock and realized his test was only a few hours away. He started to panic.
Oh no.
But the student said, "Don't worry, we'll find it."
That's exactly what he needed to hear.
Yes. Then she asked him, "Are you sure you left your bag here?"
That's an important question.
Tom stopped and tried to remember. He said, "Yes, I'm almost sure. I remember putting it under the table."
Okay, what happened next?
The student looked around and noticed something. There was a small piece of blue plastic under another table.
Blue plastic?
Yes. She walked over, picked it up, and looked at Tom. "Is this part of your keychain?"
Wait, was it?
Tom looked closely, and his eyes became wide. "Yes, that's mine."
So they were getting closer.
Exactly. Tom suddenly felt hopeful. He looked around and noticed that the piece of plastic was near the library entrance.
So maybe someone moved the bag?
That was what they thought. They walked toward the entrance and saw a library worker standing behind the front desk.
Did they ask him?
Yes. Tom walked over and politely said, "Excuse me, did you see a black backpack?"
And what did the worker say?
He thought for a moment and said, "Actually, yes, I saw a black bag this morning."
Really?
Tom immediately asked, "Where is it?" The worker pointed toward a small office behind the desk. Then he said, "Someone found it and brought it here."
Oh, so the bag wasn't stolen. Someone had found it.
Exactly. Tom felt a huge sense of relief. But there was still one question.
What question?
Who had found it?
Good question.
The library worker opened the office door and brought out a black backpack. Tom immediately recognized it. The blue keychain was hanging from the side.
He found it.
Yes. Tom smiled and almost couldn't believe it. He checked inside. His wallet was there. His keys were there. His university ID was there. And His notes were still inside.
Everything was safe.
Everything. Tom looked at the student who had helped him and said, "Thank you so much. I really couldn't have done this without you."
That's nice. He didn't forget to thank her.
No. And she simply smiled and said, "You're welcome. I'm glad we found it."
You know, there's something important here. Tom could have continued searching alone, and maybe he would have found his bag eventually. But asking for help made the whole situation much easier.
Exactly. And more importantly, he learned that asking for help isn't a sign of weakness. Sometimes it's a sign that you're strong enough to admit you need support,
That's a lesson many people need to hear.
especially when we're worried. When something goes wrong, we sometimes think, "I have to solve everything myself." But that's not always true.
Right. There are people around us who are willing to help. Sometimes all we have to do is ask.
Tom put his bag over his shoulder and thanked the library worker and the student one more time. Then he looked at the clock.
Was he still worried about the test?
A little. But this time, he was smiling. He had his bag, he had his notes, and he had learned something more important than anything in his backpack.
What was it?
Sometimes, we don't need to carry every problem by ourselves.
That's beautiful. But there's still one thing we don't know.
What's that?
Who actually found Tom's bag? And why did that person bring it to the library office?
That's what Tom wanted to know too. He looked at the library worker and asked, "Excuse me, do you know who found my bag?"
What did the worker say?
He smiled and said, "Yes, a student brought it here about 20 minutes ago."
A student?
Yes, the worker pointed toward the library entrance and said, "She was sitting near the window when she noticed your bag under the table."
So someone actually noticed that Tom had forgotten it.
Exactly. The worker continued, "She didn't know whose bag it was, so she brought it to me."
That's very kind.
Tom looked around the library and noticed a girl standing near the entrance. She was holding a book and getting ready to leave.
Was she the student who helped him?
No, it was someone else. The girl who had helped Tom search was still standing beside him.
Wait, so there were two people helping him?
Exactly. One person found the bag, and another person helped Tom find the person who had found it.
That's a nice chain of kindness.
It really was. Tom walked over to the girl who had brought his bag and said, "Excuse me, were you the person who found this?"
And what did she say?
She smiled and said, "Yes, I found it under the table. I thought someone might be looking for it."
That's such a simple thing to do, but it meant a lot to Tom.
It did. He thanked her and told her how worried he had been.
What did she say?
She laughed softly and said, "Don't worry, I've lost things before too."
That's true. When you've experienced something yourself, it's easier to understand how another person feels.
Exactly. Tom smiled and said, "I guess I was lucky today."
He was lucky, but he also made a good choice.
What do you mean?
He asked for help. Imagine if he had been too embarrassed to talk to anyone. He might have spent hours looking for the bag by himself.
You're absolutely right. And that's the real lesson behind Tom's story. Sometimes we think asking for help makes us look weak. We worry that other people will think we're careless or incapable. But that's not always true.
Everyone needs help sometimes. Students need help, teachers need help, parents need help. Even people who seem very confident need help.
Exactly. Asking for help doesn't mean you can't solve problems. It means you understand that you don't have to solve everything alone.
And sometimes asking the right person can save you a lot of time and a lot of stress.
That's what Tom discovered. He was worried because he had lost something important. But instead of hiding his problem, he simply said, "Could you help me?"
And those 4 words changed the whole situation.
Exactly. The student helped him search. The library worker kept the bag safe. Another student had found it and brought it to the desk. Tom didn't solve the problem alone, but he didn't have to.
You know, I think there's another lesson here.
What's that?
When someone asks us for help, we shouldn't always think, "That's not my problem." Sometimes a small act of kindness can make someone's difficult day a little easier.
I completely agree. Maybe the student who found Tom's bag thought it was only a small thing. She probably didn't realize how worried Tom was.
But for Tom, it meant a lot.
Exactly. We never really know what someone else is going through. So, if we can help, why not?
Maybe you're listening to this story because you're learning English. Maybe sometimes you feel stuck. You don't understand a sentence. You forget a word. You make a mistake and you feel embarrassed.
If that happens, don't be afraid to ask for help. Ask your teacher, ask a friend, ask someone you trust. And most importantly, don't feel ashamed because you're still learning.
Remember, you don't have to know everything before you begin. You don't have to be perfect before you speak. And you don't have to solve every problem alone.
Sometimes, the bravest thing you can say is simply, "Could you help me?"
And sometimes those few words can lead you to the solution you were looking for.
Thank you so much for spending these few minutes with us today. We hope Tom's story helped you practice your English and gave you something useful to think about.
If you enjoyed this conversation, listen to it again later. Try to notice the words and expressions you didn't understand the first time. Little by little, your listening will become stronger.
And remember, when you have a problem, don't be afraid to ask for help.
Because sometimes we don't need to be stronger by ourselves. Sometimes we simply need to let someone stand beside us.
A problem shared can become a problem solved.
We'll see you in our next everyday conversation. Until then, keep listening, keep practicing, and keep learning.
Goodbye,
Goodbye,
everyone,
everyone, and
and happy
happy
learning.
learning.